Hey, welcome back to the Stacy with the Soul podcast. In the last episode, I talked about life being too hard or looking for meaning. So this episode, I'm going to talk also about, for you, if you feel like you're struggling at life and sometimes you feel like it's a bit too hard, maybe you're not to the point of depression or looking for meaning or feeling like meaning is missing in your life, but just sometimes you're frustrated with how hard it has to be. We all get there sometimes. Seneca, about 3,000 years ago, said a gem can't be polished without friction, nor a man without trials. We got to go through it to get stronger. It's a 3,000-year-old truth that Seneca is saying. I love to look at things that are ancient sayings and find their modern equivalent, because what that tells you is that these ideas, though they're very old, have been talked about for a very long time, which means that we as people are the same. We are still trying to figure it out as an individual, person to person. So here we are on this journey and going, man, why has it got to be so hard? And it does. Sometimes it's got to be so hard. See, there's this saying, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And what that means is that the worst thing that's ever happened to you, you now know you can handle. Like if the worst thing that ever happened to you is you stubbed your toe, anything worse than that is like, oh, can I take it? The worst thing that's ever happened to you is you've been to war and you've seen friends die. Well, you know what your line is now. Everything downhill from that is not that much, right? So it's all in degrees. The worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. Right now, whatever you're going through is perhaps worse than other things you've dealt with. Maybe just a different sort of worse. Maybe it's not worse, but it's bad. And for whatever reason, it's getting to you. Maybe it's triggering your central nervous system. Maybe it's bringing up old stuff. Who knows? But I want to come to this and just remind you that once you get through it, it gets better. You get better. You get stronger. We all get polished through friction, as Seneca put it. This is how we become stronger and better. Abraham Lincoln, great president, the 17th president in American history, the one who was assassinated at the end of the Civil War. Most of us know him for who he was when he died. This great figure. Many of us know his backstory. He's self-educated. He basically dropped out of school and went back and taught himself all sorts of things, enough to become a lawyer, enough to become a senator, enough to become a president. And that's amazing. But if you know more about his backstory, it's even more amazing, because you see, before he became president, before he became all these big things that we know him for, including the saver of the nation and the reconnector of a nation that was broken apart, he had fallen in love with this woman named Anne Rutledge. She was apparently the love of his life. He was crazy about her. Well, before they could get married or before he could make it official, Anne became really sick. I think it was rheumatoid fever or something, and she died. And it's said that it destroyed him, that for a very long time he was walking around a shell of a man, Lincoln. And there was a moment there where it was possible that he might even take his own life, or that he might just give up on life because it was harder than anything he had dealt with. Now, he dealt with the death of his mother, growing up impoverished in a cabin, having to teach himself to read, working very hard jobs his whole life until he became a lawyer, and even then struggling as a lawyer because he was a new lawyer and nobody knew him and he had to make a name for himself. But this, before he got to all that, nearly took him out. And if it had, we would have never had the great president that he was. We would not have had this icon of a human. It ended up becoming such a part of the world and such a part of the history of humans. The worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And at that point, that was the worst thing that had ever happened to him. And he stuck with it, and he went through it, not around it, didn't avoid it. He accepted it, he moved towards it, and he became what he was. The great Abraham Maslow said that in any given moment we have two options: to step forward into growth or to step backwards into safety. Forward is the only way we grow. There's no going around it. There's only going straight through it. No growth happens when you go around it or avoid it or stuff it or do those things. You must go straight through the dark woods to get to the other side. And on that other side is a lovely meadow where you meet a stronger and better version of yourself. So polish that stone that's you, and do that by bearing this. You'll be okay. I'll see you on the next episode.